Hey there, Chad here. Thanks for joining me. This is Cataclysm, Dark Days Ahead, and this is another episode of my tutorial on how to play the game. Now, over the last several days, I've played a lot of this game, and I have learned a ton of stuff. So much so that I'm doing something that I don't typically do on my videos. I'm taking a mulligan, and we're going to start over. I've learned some interesting things to help speed up the beginning of the game, at least for myself, and I'm hoping some of that translates to those of you that are kind of looking for help on getting into the heart of this game. I still haven't progressed very far. The longest I've survived is 3 days. I have found that when I quit and then I come back in, I often forget what I was thinking about doing. And I've started taking better notes to kind of prevent that, and we'll see if that strategy helps or not. So I mentioned I'm going to do a reset, and that is entirely true. I wanted to show you a couple of features here. Now, I'd actually already done that. I did a little bit of testing. I wanted to understand better how the world is generated and if there is a way to have like the same start. I'm not finding one. I could just be missing something somewhere, but it doesn't appear to me that you can like set it so that you always restart in the same spot or anything like that. Now, I have created multiple characters on the same world, and they have started in the same place randomly, but I've also seen where they don't start in the same place. So I'm not sure exactly if there's a way to control that or not. I'm going to assume there's not, just based on how I've played through that right now. So the world I was playing in was called Baldwin, and currently there's no characters in that world, as you can see. I've created a couple of other locations as well. Actually, I copied the one that I called Pine Lake into what is Evergreen Lake. This was my first step in testing things, and what I learned is it did not start me in the same locations when I restarted the world. The city names were different in the immediate area. I'm assuming these worlds are very large based on what I'm seeing, because I haven't seen the same city names when I have done resets inside the same world. So, of course, all that'll go out the window as soon as we create a new character and start this one, because that's what always happens in these videos, right? I say something and then I go to do it and it does exactly the opposite of what I was expecting. Nonetheless, I do want to show you, if you choose to restart a world, here's a way to do it. You go into that world on the world menu, and we'll go to Baldwin. Now, technically, I don't really need to do this because I already have, but I will show you the steps. You simply hit enter, and you're given a few options. You can delete the world outright. Perfectly acceptable if you want, but what I've learned is I can use reset, and what that'll do is it'll remove any characters that are out there, if there are any, and it will set the world back to its default state. Now, I mentioned that I have multiple characters start in the same place. When that happened, resources that were used, for instance, I had bashed some of the lockers to get pipes. All those lockers were bashed. I wasn't able to use those. So resetting the world basically sets it back to its starting state. We're going to go ahead and do that here. Again, not completely necessary because I'd kind of already done it to make sure I knew what I was going to see when we did this. But I'm going to go ahead and create a custom character. And last time, we will select Baldwin once again. Last time I created a lumberjack, I thought that sounded like a good idea. He had a wood axe. Felt like that was a good way to start, and I quickly came to regret that. So I'm going to start a different profession this time and add a couple of steps that I didn't before. Again, I've done a lot of playing this last week, and I have found two that I'm really enjoying. We'll look at one of those today. So I'm going to go to single pool, and we're going to go to scenario. I'm going to do evacuee once again. Profession, I've decided to do mail carrier. That sounds a little odd. First of all, it doesn't cost any points, just like lumberjack, but it comes with vehicles and dodging. That's good. And it has what I find to be important, a messenger bag. A messenger bag is something to carry stuff around. And one of the restrictions I was running into with lumberjack was he couldn't carry anything. He had his axe that he could put on his belt. I did discover that right at the end of the last video, I think. But really, he didn't seem to have a lot of carrying capacity, and I wasn't really sure how to improve that. I have learned some techniques for that, and we'll cover that hopefully here in this video. But in the meantime, I'm going to start with a mail carrier. I just feel like that's maybe a better start for how I like to play. Also, mail carrier comes with a watch, so you know exactly what time it is. We will do a little talk about some of the timing in the game here in this episode as well. For background, I'm going to choose motorsports, which gives him a little bit of familiarity with vehicles and with mechanics. You can also do like car restoration, which is the same, but it costs more points and it flips the abilities. Vehicles will be beginner with that and mechanics competent, whereas motorsports, it's the other way around. I don't want to min-max the game too much. This feels like a good balance for that. And then the other one I want to pick is fishing. You could also maybe take gardening, which gives you really similar things. Fishing gives you athletics. Gardening would give you food handling. Both give you survival. Camping also gives you survival, and I think we started with that last time. It adds healthcare in there. I'm willing to pass on the healthcare for now and just go with fishing. So hit enter on there, and you'll notice I'm at 6 points. I'm going to go to stats, and this time, instead of just strength, maybe we did intelligence last time, I can't remember. I'm going to do strength, dexterity, and intelligence, all three of those. We're going to go with that. We're going to go to traits. Now, outdoorsman is automatically selected. I believe that's due to fishing. Before we pick anything else here, I'm going to move to the middle column using the right arrow, and I'm going to select addictive personality. You can become addicted to drugs, alcohol, things like that. I'm going to do my best to avoid using those items so that, assuming I can do that, it's an easy 2 points to pick up a couple of other things. I'm also going to select squeamish. Squeamish has to do with being able to use zombie clothes when you come across those. Basically, if you're squeamish, you can't. I probably wouldn't do that anyway. A lot of the games that I have played, if you think about like RimWorld, tainted clothing gives you a morale downer, so I don't tend to use those anyway. So my thought is, why not just go ahead and play that here as well? So I'm going to hit squeamish, and that gives me another point. So I'm back up to 6. Over on this column, I'm going to select, and I think we did this last time, strong back. That makes him a little, will give my character the ability to carry a little more equipment. And then over here, I'm going to make somebody that looks like my typical character. Blonde hair, blue eyes, and light skin tone is where I usually go with this. And then over to skills. For skills, I'm going to take bashing weapons, and the reason for that is all the early weapons that you can make pretty much immediately have a bashing ability. And there's other reasons that you want to be able to bash things. So if we have a makeshift crowbar, we can use it to bash. Most of the early weapons that are the things that you can find quickly will use bash. So we're going to go with that. We're going to go with melee. I'm going to go with marksmanship. I'm hoping we find a rifle or a pistol or something like that relatively quickly. That I have found is a game changer. I happened to find some crates that had weapons in them in one of my playthroughs this last week, and that made a big difference. I was safe. That might be the game where I survived the longest. Typically, I'm dying because I get stupid, and that's a problem I have in these kinds of games. I get rushed, and I decide to do things a little faster than I should. So we'll see how this goes. And I'm also going to add fabrication. We're going to go over to description, and we're going to change the name to Chad, Missouri. He's male. We're going to go with O negative blood. So I played with this next thing just a little bit, starting location, and it says 4 variants. What I have learned is that this literally just is the type of setup you have when you start the game. The open floor plan tends to give you fewer options to get going. The last one I did, I couldn't find a flashlight, for example. There were no flashlight. There might have been flashlights. There were no batteries, though, in the building, period. I haven't tried compartmentalized. I've tried several restarts with open floor plan. What I've learned is that the map is different each time. The one map, I was literally sitting right on the lake. There were fish in the lake. I was going to be able to make a fishing rod and go out there and catch some fish as needed. I quit that game, restarted everything, immediately did another open floor plan. I was in the middle of the woods with nothing I could see nearby that was helpful. So know that if you reset, hitting the same selection here doesn't necessarily give you the same starting spot. Like I said, I haven't tried compartmentalized. I did try central pillar. I think this is like you're starting at the main evacuation center. I'm going to go ahead and select that. I think that might be a little easier for the tutorial. I'm going to say the shelter, and then we are going to get started. Okay, we'll go ahead and hit this and flip over into the game. Okay, and here we are in the evacuation center getting started. This is evacuation shelter C41, and there is somebody here who we can talk to. The exclamation point means that they see us. I think I said earlier that it means there's somebody we can interact with. My new understanding is that means that they can see you and you can see them. If you roll over it, it will say aware of your presence in the notes there. Unfortunately, I can't highlight it with the mouse, but you should be able to see that there. And then the previous character didn't have a watch, so I do want to talk a little bit about time. Let's get the curtains open here though real quick. That'll help a little bit. If you look over here at time, it says 0800.05. So I did select military time for my timekeeping. So this is 0800 hours, or 8 o'clock in the morning. The decimal shows you the number of seconds. So this will go from 00 up to 59, and then it'll advance a minute. Generally, every keystroke is 1 second. So if I take a step towards that computer terminal, we go to 6 seconds. If I go back, it'll be 7 seconds. If you're running, I think it might, well, let's try it. Go to run and do exactly the same thing. And as you can see, it went to 8 and then it stayed at 8 for 2 ticks. Now it's at 9 and it'll probably stay at 9 again. Yep. And now it'll go to 10 and stay at 10. So running basically uses half as much time as you move around. Wooden floor looks to be kind of the standard movement mode. If we're going through bushes and that, more seconds will tick with each click. So that's something to pay attention to. We're going to go back to walk. Another thing to know is periodically when you do things, your heart rate will go up and you'll start getting a heartbeat sound. Now I've got the ambient sound turned down to make for a little bit better video. Sometimes there are sound things going on that you probably can't hear. I'll try to call out heartbeats when I hear them. But the idea is when you hear that, it means that your stamina is starting to run low and you need to rest. One way you can rest is simply hitting the 5 on your keypad, which is basically stand still and do nothing and allow time to pass. So that was 1 tap, 2, 3, 4. You can also hold it down and time will simply pass. Okay, let's go ahead and talk to this guy, see if he needs anything. So we bump into him. And he says, I guess it's just us. That is a start that typically tells me he doesn't have any conditions. Sometimes you'll get someone who either needs the, but what I have seen so far is guys like this that'll say it's just us, or somebody who needs an inhaler because their asthma is acting up, or someone who needs antibiotics. Those are the 3 that I've seen. Oh, I'm sorry, there is one other one. Maybe that's 2 other ones. They had a friend or a relative that was killed and they want you to go kill the monster, or they saw something close by that they think needs to be terminated or handled. That should do it. And you'll notice he says we should try to find a car and get out of here, basically, and that's okay. But you can also ask him tips. And I think we did this before, but every time you ask for a tip, they will give you a different one for the most part. I have seen a lot of tips. I do get the same one every once in a while, but I'm not sure I've seen this one before. For example, glass bottle can make a good weapon in a pinch. Okay, that's good to know. I also have decided it's not a bad idea to trade with this guy, at least to see what he's got. And in this case, he has a hatchet. Hatchets aren't a bad thing. He's got some medical supplies. That's about it. What I've seen is we kind of want to see what kind of weapon he has. It looks like his weapon is the hatchet. It's not a bad weapon. Sometimes they will have a rifle. That's awesome. The reason I want to know, though, is if something is outside and starts chasing me and I bring it into the house, how much help am I going to get from him to take care of it? That's really what I'm kind of looking for right now. And what this tells me is I'll get hatchet help, so which is fine. It's melee help we will get. And real quick, I'm going to do the typical stuff you do when you first end up in a shelter. I'm going to run around. I'm going to open all the lockers, see if there's anything important. I'm going to do that off screen here so that you don't have to watch every second of that, and I will be back with you in just a minute. Okay, what a difference a restart makes. This particular shelter, I found some good stuff, including some protein bars and a few bottles of water. I've put those over here. I did find a battery. You'll notice that my character's head is glowing a little bit. That's because the flashlight is on. And when I went downstairs, Not that this is a huge boon, but it's more than we saw in the last attempt with the lumberjack. When I came over here to so first of all, I found a couple of electric lanterns in here. So I've got a couple of lanterns on me. And when I came in here, I saw this little icon here, and I thought, that can't be what I think it is it? But it is. It's a pipe. And a pipe is important because we will eventually turn that into a crowbar, and there's some other weapons we can use. Now I can't fit it in a pocket right now, so I just hit W and I will now wield that. I am going to go ahead and grab the aluminum can, and I'm going to finish seeing what else is down here. First aid kit, extremely important. If you recall, we couldn't even pick up the first aid kit last time because we had too much stuff. Having the backpack, which is I think it's the messenger bag, is extremely helpful for that. I'm going to leave a lot of this stuff. It's good to know it's here. Actually, I do tend to take the toilet paper with me. And I'm going to finish this up and meet you back upstairs. Okay, I've run around and kind of picked up some other stuff. Here's those lanterns. I'm going to leave those here. And I chose to put a crafting spot here because there's a few important things that were already up here. Started with a couple of, I think it was 2 gallons of bleach there. I've added a couple of more, or one more anyway. That could be important at some point, but I wanted my crafting spot to be close enough to where I kind of keep general supplies to make sense. I think it has to be within 6 of where you're crafting in order to show up as on you. So I thought this gives me some space up here to work with. I'm going to keep foodstuffs down here. I will probably eventually move jackets and that up here as well. Maybe use some of these lockers. Of course, these lockers, 3 of them aren't even being used. That is going to make really good sense for having the crowbar. I don't know if I can make the crowbar yet. Now that I think about it, I might need a couple more things. Yeah, I do. I need a couple more items. So I'm going to go outside and show you one other thing I learned in the meantime. Then maybe we will wrap this up for this episode, but we'll start up another one right away and move forward. So real quick, the map location, I wanted to show you what we can kind of see from here. And that is, there's a few houses up here. I should be able to get into these without alerting too many zombies, hopefully. Not sure what the plus is with this tile set. We'll have to see what that is. I'm going to run around again and find a few things that I need, like rock. And then, oh, the other thing I wanted to point out, though, after we find a rock, I guess we don't have to have a rock for what I want to talk about, is withered plants. I had been kind of suffering with, how do I get withered plants? I was going around picking everything that I could, and I have discovered that that's not the right way to do it. What you can do instead, still not really seeing any rocks. There we go. It's a sharp rock or a flint maybe. Flaking rock, okay. What you can do is when you get towards the edge where there's lots of trees and bushes and that, you can smash these kinds of shrubs, and those almost always give you withered plants. If they give you something, they'll give you that. Sometimes they'll give you twigs and leaves, but very often you'll also get withered plants. So I now know how to get a lot of plants to make cordage, and I'm going to grab some of that as well. And before calling this episode, I'm going to run around and do a little bit more of this, and I will bring it back to the house, and we will follow up from there. Okay, and here we are. We're basically back at home. One thing I wanted to mention is I did have one setup where I never went out into the, I guess you could call this like a parking lot. Looks like parking slots here. I never went out that side of the building. I'd always gone out the other one like I did this time. And when I did finally go out there, there was a car parked right there, and it was one that would run. So I got the opportunity to learn how to use a car, and once we find one, we'll look into that. But always check your start. If you're doing evacuee, always check your starting surroundings. There's a chance there's some really good stuff very, very close by for you. Long story short, I've not seen anything quite like that this time, but we will see. I'm going to go inside, and we're going to finish up this episode. Oops, I did not mean to close or open that door. We'll close that real quick. I'm coming to my crafting spot, and I want to make makeshift crowbar. First thing I want to do. So we will hit that, and we will pick it up. I'm going to wield it. There's nothing to pick up. Okay, good to know. So it looks like when you're next to a crafting spot, that's where it will put whatever you are crafting. Let's see if we can also do cordage, I think. We want to see if we can do some cordage. I always start by doing short, and I did not do what I meant to there, so we'll do that once more. I meant to hit batch, so you just hit B and it'll show you how many you can make, and I'm just going to make the most. So that'll give me 10 total because I did just create one other one. A lot of times it will put those right in your hand, although maybe not this time. Let's see. Nope, put them on the ground. So we're going to take those, and I want to make sure, well, I can see it from here. I'm wielding my crowbar. So this is a pretty decent start. I'm going to go ahead and end this particular episode. We will come back, though, start at roughly the same spot. I'm probably going to explore around a little bit. We will pick up in this same character and very nearby where we are here. I really appreciate your time. And until next time, fair travels.